You're listening to the 14th source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, October 21st, 2022. And we dive 1 week deeper into Spookytober. And because of that, we have a very spooky episode for you.
No, we don't.
This week.
No.
I mean, it's spooky if you are
if you're a man baby on the internet.
If you're a man baby incel on the internet. Sorry, we're going to talk about women. It's been a week. I don't know about you. I hurt myself a little bit. It turns out, Andrew, it gets easier to hurt yourself as you, what's the word? Age.
Yeah.
Man, I sprained my hamstring. Let me tell you how.
By standing up.
Yep, no, getting out of bed. I'm like, oh God, what did I do? Just felt like the Charlie horse of the decade, and then I looked and it was black and blue. I'm like, holy shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have a problem with some severe sprains in the past. I've sprained both calves. My right thigh is the only one that hasn't been harmed. So...
Yeah,
nice knowing you.
It is always those interesting things that you know. And again, most people will discover this if they haven't already, where you're just like, oh wow, these things hurt in ways they didn't used to hurt. Yeah, but this is not the nerds getting old show.
Well, I mean, isn't it? Speaking of that, I mean, I've heard that the Analogue Pocket is finally being distributed to people. I know. Did you ever end up ordering one of those?
It is so. Yeah, no. So Analogue is the company that make all these play old game systems. You actually have one.
FPGA based systems, yeah.
Yeah, fucking piece of whatever.
Wow, buddy. Wow.
Field programmable gate array.
Obviously, you're a Dodge fan.
No, it's funny because some people even said like it's one of these things where they make this big fuss about FPGAs. It's like it's not really that big a deal, but they do make really good systems for playing.
I don't bring up FPGAs because I'm like, oh, it's so good. I just want to differentiate between it's software emulator.
It's a quasi-physical, quasi-hardware emulator rather than software, but it's a programmable hardware, so it's actually anyway. but the point is, talk about. They started making, I think, what the Nintendo device. I forget what they call it. Which you have, right? Or do you have the Super Nintendo one?
I have the Super NT. The NT, their Nintendo device was, if not the first item, it was definitely the first one that got a lot of attention. One, because it, allegedly played like 99% of all games without any sort of bugginess, because it's emulating the hardware, not the software. And software-based emulators tended to have problems with that. But also it was because it was $400. And then that was kind of the flagship for a while. They must have done stuff in between then, but what caught my attention was that they're doing a Super NT, it was a Super Nintendo version of that. I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. That's the system I would love to have, because I should say both these systems not only emulate the hardware, but they actually have HDMI out.
Right.
So you can
and there's a lot more interfacey. Yeah.
Right. With relatively, little, if any, kind of lag. It's all kind of calibrated to work on modern televisions. And I'm like, I was excited for the Super NT because I'm never going to get one because that last one was $400. And it's like, I think it was $199, maybe $250, maybe, which was remarkably affordable compared to the previous systems. So I got on the wait list and picked one up, and I've been kind of satisfied. But they've released a Genesis one. I think they have a TurboGrafx 16 one, or that's on the way. But they did announce the Analogue Pocket, which actually, yes, it's a Game Boy emulator, but much, much, much more.
Right. It will be able to do a lot more than just a Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, but also adapters to do Game Gear and other portable systems. But for me,
and dock to a TV.
And
right?
dock to a TV, and it's also like really high resolution. So instead of the 200 by 300, it can run a lot sharper. Even though it's still the source is still 200 by 300. But the big thing is they announced it like, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago. And they finally did pre-orders, I think like a year and a half ago, maybe. I forget. It's been so long. But yeah, they finally announced that like 95% of all their pre-orders will be shipped out by the end of 2022. And I did get an email because I did pre-order one.
Okay, good. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Remember, did you miss the first round or
yeah,
something?
they did. It's the first time they did it or whatever, I was not able to get one. But the reason why I'm excited is they say it'll ship at the end before like October 24th or something. So it's, it's going to ship in the next week or two. And they're actually, I don't know where they ship from, but I think their office is in Seattle. So I'm hoping it won't be a big delivery delay. But the thing is, like, for whatever reason, I don't have any old other game stuff really, but Game Boy's games I have. Like a bunch of, because when I was in the Navy, I bought a lot of Game Boy Advance stuff because it was very easy to take underway.
So specifically GBA games.
GBA games mostly, yeah. So I have all of these cartridges, and they're small, so I kind of like had them in a sack, and I still have them, right? I still have, and there's a lot of really great games from that system, that era. So I'm actually really excited to be able to play them, to have a little portable system, but then also, connect it to my TV or my computer monitor, one of the two. So I'm excited to see it.
Portable system, just because you don't have.
I don't have any of those. The one thing I did,
and you're not interested in getting into that kind of collecting.
The only thing I very strongly considered. Don't tell the internet. I considered looking into flashable cartridges. In the weird case where maybe I'd find, I don't know, a ROM image,
a ROM for a game that you definitely owned at one point in the past.
Wink, wink. I've actually thought about that. Although I know they have some options where you could actually, because they also have like developed games for the Analogue Pocket, so they have a way to do that, which is like just an interesting, cute little thing to do.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like this is also kind of the debut of the Analogue OS, I think it's called, where it's developing their own operating system. And it seems like, especially with how much inventory they have now, or at least how many offerings they have now, how much clout they've gotten, that seems like the logical next step. So it's cool, right? And yeah, I'm excited to hear your when that comes in and what you think about it with the initial impressions.
And to be clear, I actually still do have Game Boy devices I could use. Although the one thing I did really, I do. There are some new bonus features on the Analog. I think you can save memory states and stuff, which I think is a nice feature, really especially for games that either didn't have save features or older games where if it was a battery game, the battery's dead. But
I don't think the Super NT even has that.
Yeah. So at least I think it does. But I mean, is this opportunity to play them in a different fashion. And also, I hate to say it, the original Game Boy Advances are kind of small.
It's tiny, yeah.
And so the idea of just, even though this one is not the biggest thing, but but I could plug it into the TV and,
So have you planned I'm obviously not, because it doesn't matter that much, but is there a go-to game that you're going to plug in first, just to either because you're nostalgic for the game or because you just like this would be a good test of like the upscaling software or hardware or whatever, and seeing what it's like on a TV or just how it plays in a modern setting?
I don't know. So the one thing I do, there's some games that I have not booted up in forever. Which would be interesting, to give some of those a whirl. And there are also games that I bought that I never really played much.
Sure.
I know a really popular game that's kind of lost to time is a game called Golden Sun. It was a Game Boy Advance RPG, JRPG. And
Konami, right?
I thought Nintendo.
Oh, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm thinking of Bach.
but the big thing is just the ability to be able to play that. Because actually, I saw a few people actually playing it on their Pocket, saying, "Oh my gosh, finally you can play this game again in an easy way." So yeah, we'll see. We will see. I'm excited. We'll hear more about that in probably in a month or so, and we'll see what I have to say. But we're here to talk about not that.
No, not old things. We're here to talk about new things that are now old because they're done, and that is She-Hulk: Attorney at Law.
Yes.
The most recent Disney Plus MCU show, 9-episode series of about a half hour each. It was really nice kind of diversion in its own way. The sort of runtimes for these shows have been all over the place. And episode counts have also been over the place. So before we go forward, be aware that we're going to be talking about spoilers for She-Hulk: Attorney at Law, the Disney Plus show. So if you haven't watched it and you want to watch it before listening to this conversation, you should probably go do so. And that's your final warning.
Yeah.
This is a show you and I have a strange history with. Not a strange, a passionate history with, even before the show, because we wanted a She-Hulk show.
We did.
And we wanted a David E. Kelly She-Hulk show. This is documented because
we talked about it on this, yeah.
And then it happened, and we saw the trailer, and we saw the first episode, and we were still speculating what kind of show is this going to be. So with that in mind, I just kind of want to start, like, the show that you expected, the show that we got, how intersected are those circles for you now that it's over?
Well, I will say, to quote She-Hulk Jennifer Walters herself, this show is a legal comedy.
Yep, she said that. That's how. Yeah, the finale. The show is a legal comedy.
The show's a legal comedy, and while it had other content as well, I do feel like legal comedy was a central part of it. Several of the episodes focus on legal stuff in a funny way.
And arguably the final boss fight, for lack of a better, the fight with the big bad in the finale was started with the phrase, "I would like to give my closing argument."
Yeah.
It happened to be a robot version of Kevin Feige, but that's beside the point.
It is one of these things where I think they did it while also doing other things that I would not have thought of. For example, I think they had some kind of like, I mean, I know the idea of She-Hulk being both a Hulk and a woman and coming to terms with that. But the idea of like a character being a woman in this modern world of creepy shit and stuff. They did that.
Fandoms and
superheroes and revenge porn or whatever. Right. The idea that they introduced that as part of the narrative to the point where I don't know if I said it on the show or if I said it afterwards. In the 8th episode, they have kind of like the big reveal at the end of the episode of kind of like the big danger, and it's basically right. She's gotten revenge porned, and I kind of said like it was kind of horrifying because it's like. It's the most realistic villainy thing that like we've seen in a Marvel thing, and it's also awful, right? Like it's awful. Yeah, no Eastern European city was dropped from the sky by an evil robot, but
right.
I remember feeling like, oh man, that episode was feeling really good, and it ended on this big gut punch, which emotionally effective, but not pleasing.
Right. It's weird. Like actually, I think some of the most effective villains in superhero movies have been from this year. This, which is just, like revenge porn, internet, what do you call it? Men's rights culture.
Yeah.
And to that end, also very similar, the Riddler from The Batman, which was basically, internet revenge and the internet breeding extremism. Like it's cool to see writers kind of being aware enough to bring that into pop culture content, but it's also scary how well the horrors of today are mixing in with the horrors of fantasy, for lack of a better word, right? It's not a good sign. There should be a larger gulf dividing these two things, but here we are. But the fact, like you said, that they, especially for She-Hulk, it seemed like the right thing to do, but it's funny to realize or to see them actually dive into it. I feel like this would be a topic more like at the end of the season, we'd be like, oh, it would have been cool if they had actually approached this topic more. But I don't have that complaint. Right. They approached those criticisms and that culture head on. And in hindsight, it's perfect because it is a legal comedy show. Yeah. And like that's the kind of topics they should be addressing. Because it's a good avenue to talk about those issues, to expose people to those issues in a way that is non-threatening, quote unquote. Not that really matters, but in a way that people of different opinions can meet on neutral ground. And to that extent, She-Hulk succeeded in more ways than I was expecting. Approaching from like the legal comedy kind of angle, Although more courtroom scenes would have been nice,
right? But, I would have liked to have seen more. Although they did have, there's several very silly legal battles that they have throughout the show, and so I think it worked. I would have liked to have seen more of that, but I think what they did was
I guess fun. It was kind of more front loaded, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, with a little backload, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Right. The 8th episode definitely had a lot of that. You know,
you're right.
So I think it did. I would say it's like almost every other episode has a legal centric narrative in either the A or the B plot.
And it's cool that the conceit allows for that. One, I'm happy in the show they seem to be talking openly about a second season, whether that's just for the sake of the narrative or if that's actually in the works. That'd be great. But I think you're right. It's a character whose premise allows to kind of bounce back and forth. Something that really congeals in the finale, like literally the last shot of the show as she's walking up the steps, and the reporter's like, she says, like, if you're a bad guy, I'm coming after you. And and the reporter asks, do you mean in the courtroom or as She-Hulk? And she said,
why not?
Both.
Yeah, was it? I thought, why not both? Or both or something.
Right,
yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's a great explanation of what this show is and can be. The first season was evidence of that, and it was really cool. One of the things we weren't really expecting, but we were wondering how it would go. And the first or second trailer made us go like, oh, it looks like they might make a nod to it. But upon watching the show, they went head first into the fourth wall breaking that She-Hulk is all about. I know you're a fan, or at least a connoisseur of sort of metafiction and stuff like that. How did you find She-Hulk's approach to this? Especially because they get really kind of almost abstract with it by the end, where she's like, in the last episode, she's sitting on her bed and this narrator starts talking. She's like, no narrator.
Right.
And walks, yeah, it's good stuff.
Well, and I think it started relatively slow or mild, right? Where she made a few looks to the camera and a few comments that were clearly not in world. But by the end of it, they were really comfortable just kind of sundering that completely and going bananas, right? With kind of the most notable being the turn of let me basically pop out of the TV and as I believe someone said, the full blazing saddles.
The full blazing, yes. I think that was my comment. I remember Nicole, we were watching the episode, and it went out to that menu, and she was like, because she was into it, she's like, what did you do? I'm like, I didn't do anything, man. Yeah. Thinking I had fucked with the controller or something like that.
And it works for what that character has a history of doing, and it kind of fit in the theme of like, and I like the fact that how they got there was, we see this episode where we see kind of like these threads coming together of they're all going to meet in this place and have a big fight, and that's exactly what it is. And then she's like, well, no, wait a second. What are we doing here? Right. It is like, why does every Marvel show just have to end on a big fight like that? But what I liked about it also was it wasn't just that, why do we have to have a fight? It's that, why does everything have to be like, why does Hulk show up like out of the blue? Why does, what's her name? Tatiana show up? Like all these things were...
Or Titania.
All these, these bizarre characters all show up for this big, like, fight in a barn,
Right. That was actually a talking point I had for later, but why not dive into it now? One of the things that finale did, I think, like, I could talk about this finale for the entire episode if we wanted. In that case, she's making to KEVIN, it's an acronym, I guess. Oh, they laid out what the acronym stood for, I think, in the episode, but I forgot.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, in the closing argument section that she's making to Kevin the robot, and she's like, why is Hulk here? And he's like, but we need to set up she's like, it doesn't matter. Like, what matters is that I have an arc, that I have a story that I'm going through, and we need to solve it. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. This is a Marvel movie that's standing up and saying, and again, I'm not saying all Marvel shows or movies do this, but like it's taking a very firm stance of like what matters at this moment is character, not continuity. Mm-hmm. And as a person that has been kind of openly anti-continuity, I'm like, oh, this is nice. They do weave in continuity, like sneak peeks and nods throughout the episode, especially towards the end. But to actually kind of make that part of her closing salvo, it was really cool to see a character take that stand and say, like, let's resolve my arc rather than using this as just an avenue to set up what comes next.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because once that they decide to do it differently, they just go to like, and it's over. That whatever big fight was about to happen is just over. and we then get to focus on
Daredevil literally drops out of the sky.
Well, you know, she's a Hulk. She smashes, you know, things, and
sometimes Matt Murdock.
Matt Murdock.
The actress that they got for She-Hulk is absolutely perfectly cast. Like Marvel just continuing with their wonderful ability to cast the right actors for these roles. And this actor, well, I should say her name, Tatiana Maslany, had a sizable amount of fame or attention from her work on the show Orphan Black, which is kind of a dark, I think, sci-fi kind of show. I might be wrong. Someone fact check me here.
I think you're right, but I don't know.
She transitioned to comedy action perfectly. It was a breath of fresh air, just like Ms. Marvel was. It's funny. When talking about this with friends, with my wife, I'm surprised at how much I also bring up Ms. Marvel in the conversation, because I feel like Ms. Marvel, which was much more of a traditional superhero narrative, but the way they approached it in terms of direction, the way the characters were written, the way the stories went, like it was such a kick in the pants to the genre that I knew I needed. But I never expected that they'd actually do it. And I really kind of view these two series as of a piece, in a way, of kind of like a shot in the arm to the MCU that it desperately needed, especially with sort of the more subdued phase 4 or whatever we're in right now, which is it gives me more hope and excitement.
Yeah, and I think what I like is that, you know, we've always talked about how the MCU movies have kind of been finding a, you know, oh look, they're doing this one's a little bit more this one's a little bit more that, but you know, they're really finally getting to the point where it feels like, yeah, they're making a legal comedy show. Yes, it's in the MCU, but it's just a legal comedy show, which I really think is, if they want to keep doing this, which they clearly do because they have a schedule out to like 25,000, you know, they need to be able to mix it up, right? We can't have, I just don't think like that, hey, let's have 4 2-hour-long superhero movies,
conservative 2.5-hour movies,
or whatever,
all so fucking long. Yeah,
like that kind of stuff doesn't work as well. We're to the point where, we've seen that. It's like, I think back to when the first Doctor Strange came out, and my thought was like, oh wow, they remade Iron Man, you know. And
not to get too far off topic here, but like, it makes me wonder, because I think I agree that this is probably the best mode for the MCU going forward, of having movies do movie stuff and TV shows do TV show stuff, and having those narratives in some way or another maybe interconnect, blend with each other, cross over with each other. But then I think about like part of the early phases of the MCU were about building to that big Avengers movie, right? Which made it an event.
Right. With
there being so many properties spread across movies, with probably, just because it's faster to make TV shows, many more on Disney Plus. I wonder if they can get that hype for that Avengers style movie, unless it is literally like, I don't even know if this would be enough. And I don't even know this is what they do. It's like, oh, the Avengers style big event movie, it's where everybody from everywhere comes in to play. And I'm like, maybe, yeah, that idea sounds awesome, I guess, in theory, but that sounds like a mess.
Right. Well, and so I was thinking about this, right? One of the movies, I think it's a movie that they announced was Thunderbolts.
Right.
Which just features a bunch of people from a bunch of different shows and properties. And you're like, okay, that would be a movie, right? Sure. Yeah. You have a big, although, I mean, I'm now to the point where this has really drawn me into like, but do I want even movies anymore? And that's a very me thing. I've been enjoying these shows and the way that they're handling their storytelling. Like I'm realizing when I think back to all the Marvel stuff I've been watching, I don't really think about the movies as much. Like, honestly, it's not that I don't like them. They're just, I'm enjoying the TV shows more.
And honestly, there haven't been many.
There haven't been many.
Over the last couple of years. I don't know what happened in the last couple of years to really screw everything up.
I can't imagine, right? I can't.
But there's also a middle ground there. Like, yeah, they could have the big movies for their tentpole, you know, characters and franchises. And they have the Disney Plus shows to kind of expand the universe and do weird things. But they have Disney Plus. They could also make movies for Disney Plus. That I'm not saying like
they did.
Co-release in theaters, right? But like we're making this movie, and I think Hocus Pocus, like it's not Marvel, but Hocus Pocus 2, I think was a Disney Plus release. I don't think it was in theaters at all.
Right.
And like it's a movie. I know HBO did this as well in some
before the fall.
Before HBO, yeah. HBOh No.
But yeah, I think you're right. And I actually think that, like I said, that even in Marvel, which I did Werewolf by Night, which I hear is great. Weird that I didn't hear about it until like a weeks before it came out, but
right, that dropped out of nowhere, which made me worry. Like, are they not confident in it? But maybe they just don't care. It's like, hey, it's done. Let's get it out there.
To me, it may just be Disney trying to assess what it means to live in a post-theater world, because I think they have to face the reality that movie theaters are never going to be quite like they were. I think we're going to see more big event movies do well and a lot more of like, yeah, you're just not going to see the at least that's my thought. That's what it feels like, right? You see these, what is it? Fucking Top Gun, right? Blew the box office up, but like it's fucking Top Gun, right?
Spider-Man No Way Home, right? Is that the third one? That one cleaned up.
Yeah, but that's the idea of, I think, most. Because I think people are more reluctant to go to theaters, especially now that like we've all gotten used to watching stuff. I mean, some people still like theaters. I'm not saying that they're dead.
You're talking to one,
right? I'm talking to a theater.
Yep. I'm not dead.
It's just one of those things where I do feel like you have to do more, because I see these advertisements for these kind of mediocre looking we had to have a movie out in October movies,
Right.
And it's like, I'm not going to go to the theater for any of that. And I can't imagine those are breaking down box offices.
I've been out of the theater game for so long. Like, I wonder if COVID and the sort of the slow death of theaters, if like the traditional like rush seasons are kind of gone. The big movie seasons were summer releases and winter releases, right? May, June, July, and then December and January. Where like that's when you release your big movies, because that's when people are out of school or work or take vacation and stuff like that. I wonder if like just because fewer people in general are going to the theaters, if that kind of that structure for the industry has been upended in some shape or form.
I could believe it.
Yeah, me too.
That's the idea of like, you release movies around these times because that's, like you said, or like, the Memorial Day weekend movie or the whatever movie. Like, yeah, just being a movie in the theater is no longer enough to get people to go to the theater.
I'm just trying to talk through this because I know he's listening, because when Avatar 2 doesn't make $1 billion, James Cameron needs some excuses.
He needs some excuse.
And people to blame. So and probably young people right now.
It'll be young people, or he'll blame Martin Scorsese.
Right. Say that Netflix movies aren't real movies. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. God, not only is there a second movie, there's a third and a fourth? Anyway.
Yeah, the second and third are filmed.
I mean, how many Fern Gully movies were there?
Hey, sometimes you just it stops being sequels and becomes fan fiction. I don't know. Let's turn this car back to She-Hulk real quick. One of the things people were expecting from She-Hulk was, because it was teased in the trailers, was the return of Matt Murdock as Daredevil.
Yeah, Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock as Daredevil.
Indeed. And one of the every week is like, is Daredevil going to be in this episode? Is Daredevil going to be in this episode? And like, they knew it, and they just kept pushing it and delaying it, and not delaying it, but they're just like, they were playing with us. They knew what this people making this show had game, and they were using all their wiles to really string us along, and it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
But let's talk about his reappearance, because there's also the new costume, which we got a little glimpse of earlier in the season. And we got Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock as Daredevil back.
It's that thing where, this is that thing where I feel like, say what you will about the Netflix Marvel shows, their casting was 75% great.
Sure.
Sorry, that's a joke for Iron Fist. But I think they really did a great job of casting Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. So like to see them come in and play
Punisher.
that character again. Oh yeah, Punisher as well. I forgot about it. He was great. In fact, I think he's actually. I think the Daredevil show is supposed to be like a lot of them are going to be featured in it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like to see them. I think they played the part well, right? It's when you have an actor who you like the version of the character they did. you want to see more of it. So I'm excited. And the fact that it apparently motivated them to make this new Daredevil show, all 18 episodes of it.
What's interesting is that, because he's not the first Netflix MCU character to show up in the MCU, right? Kingpin was.
Well, technically he was, because he appeared in Spider-Man first.
Well, Kingpin was Hawkeye. That was December. Was
right.
that
Spider-Man No Way Home was before that, wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know. Editor's note. Kingpin appeared in Hawkeye Episode 5, which debuted on Disney Plus 2 days before Spider-Man No Way Home released in theaters. So, Dan is right. I'm an unbiased participant here. I'm just a nameless editor, editing this show because I love it. But Dan was right. Facts. And the thing is that the point I wanted to make was this, is that Hawkeye was a gritty kind of show. It's like the most Netflix MCU show that Disney Plus has made. So like the Kingpin fit in really well.
Although that was a much jollier Kingpin than
Sure. Although he got murdered. But again, spoilers for Hawkeye. I was kind of not worried because because Charlie Cox is wonderful as Matt Murdock, and he obviously loves being the character. And the character, and the character, especially when he's among his peers in the show, has a lot of light moments. But like that, I was kind of wondering, like, especially in like a full-on comedy, is the Matt Murdock we're going to see, even though it's played by the same actor, is it going to feel like the same Matt Murdock from that show? And aside having a color scheme like a hot dog, I felt he was like, it felt like the Matt Murdock. Not just because, and I can't explain why, but like his interpretation of the script through the lens of the character that he had created on the show, it felt authentic and it felt of a piece with that original show.
Right. Except it was also much more lighthearted than he was in that original show. And it's actually that kind of thing where like, I actually really like that. Cause again, I like the character. I like how he played it, but I never even finished. I didn't see the last season of Daredevil because
neither did I.
Those shows just became too much for me.
Yeah. Despite, I should have watched it just because the villain in that season was played by a guy named Wilson Bethel. You think I would have seen it or gotten a phone call. I don't know him. I'm not related to him, I don't think. I guess maybe if you go back far enough, he might be, but I don't know.
Seek not the Bethel.
Yeah, or Bethel shall come to naught. Amos 5:5.
So I did enjoy seeing Daredevil back, and it makes me kind of interested to see what they're going to do with him going forward. And I like the show. I think it was great. The one thing I will say is, what is there like a next show? I guess I haven't really been paying attention.
That's a good question.
Like, what's the next Marvel thing? I don't know.
What If 2, maybe? I know that they're doing it.
I don't know.
What is that? Let us know in the comments, dear listeners.
I mean, we could probably Google this, but I don't know if they have a definitive release date for the next thing.
Yeah, I think, the movies are lined up next, right? We got Black Panther coming out soon.
Oh, Black Panther actually comes out like in a couple of weeks. Right.
Gosh, what else comes out?
Quantum Mania, I believe, is early next year.
Oh, right.
With what's his name? Who I can't remember his name.
Majors?
Jonathan Majors. Who I'm sorry. I just saw the trailer for Creed 3 this week, and at first you
need to stay seated.
I didn't realize it was him, and I was like, wait, what's?
Well, you weren't looking at his face, my dude.
I just wasn't. I was like, damn, I don't know what gym he's going to, but I gotta get a membership. But anyway, so yeah, Quantum Mania. That's what got me to him. Honestly, like everything that guy I see, I'm just like, wow, he's good. I want to see more of him.
It's funny, like, because a lot of people are talking about, like, oh man, he got really jacked. Because he was like the nerd in Lovecraft Country. I'm like, no, dude, he took off it. He wore glasses. But he took off his shirt in that show. I'm like, whoa, this nerd does crunches.
Yeah, but he's really, really jacked for Creed 3. I mean, this is like he went to the same fitness club that all the other actors go to. Right. But anyway, enough about Creed. I still haven't even seen that series. This is embarrassing.
Neither have I.
As someone who actually really liked some of the Rocky movies, I really should.
I want to end on the final, and we've been saving the best for last. The final cameo that I think kind of changes everything, but was also the biggest surprise. I didn't hear anybody talking about this or predicting it leading up to it, but Mark Lynn Baker is back on TV as Jennifer Walters' dad. The perfect stranger himself. Well, he's not the stranger. He's cousin Larry. But I have to say, I have a weird history with Mark Lynn Baker because in my previous comic, HBOh 07, we had for no reason, I don't know how it came up, but Eben and I, the co-writer of the comic, we just started threading like Mark Lynn Baker jokes throughout the entire series. And it's just like to see him on the screen, I'm like, yay, I'm happy for you, buddy.
What's funny is I didn't recognize him, but I was like, man, where have I seen this guy before? And I was talking to a friend the other day and she's like, oh no, it's Mark Lynn Baker. I was like, what?
Dance of joy, Balky, dance of joy, which is what I did when I saw him on the screen. And he was great. I could talk about like her family. For a show that's so rooted in obviously superhero stuff and meta humor, it also felt really grounded in the way that the character interactions worked. Like kind of going off of her closing argument about being focused more on character than plot or continuity. Like I think for the fourth wall breaks to work, for the superhero stuff to work, especially for a brand new character we hadn't seen before, having her relationships with other people, even and just her trying to just be a single woman, in LA and going through dating and all that stuff was really grounded. Like those scenes were really believable, very real, and full of the banal absurdism that life has. And it was, and again, the casting but of course the thing that tied it all together was Mark Lynn Baker, and so without him, this show wouldn't have worked. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think it was excellent. I approve. I'm excited to see kind of more of whatever that was.
Yeah, I cast him as Red Hulk.
Well, speaking of,
there's nothing to say there. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, apparently it is happening.
No, we'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
All right. Sorry for those who don't know. There's the discussion on the interwebs that Harrison Ford has accepted the part of Thunderbolt Ross, which anyone that knows anything is like, oh great, another thing for Harrison Ford not to give a shit about.
What the hell is Thunderbolt Ross?
Waiting for that interview.
Briefly, because I know you're more invested in this stuff than I am, but they do make a couple nods to sort of larger continuity stuff. We get, if you're a comic book fan, we get the introduction of Hulk's son, Scar, something like that, which is just like the briefest of cameos, and I'm sure a bunch of nerds popped off with excitement. But who knows? That's the thing. I feel like they do some cameos, especially like the villains that they introduced early in the show that she was like representing. Was it Mr. Immortal? I think was one of the first people. He's the guy that had a bunch of wives that he didn't fake his death. He dies, but he's immortal.
Right.
They kind of feel, and I could see people being upset about this. They had a lot of cameos, but a lot of them felt and I would say this is the case with the Hulk's son at the end. Like they kind of feel inconsequential. Like they don't have to do anything with this. It felt as much a joke as it was a cameo, which is fine because it's a comedy show. But I can see big fans of the MCU, big Marvel fans of the comics that see this character and like, oh my God, everything is changing now. And then go and complain on the internet for the next 5 years.
Yeah, well, then that's fine.
So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media as well, such as Twitter and Instagram, where you can find us at our respective handles. On Twitter, you can find Andrew at Profound Dark, tweeting about tabletop role-playing games, and getting some traction lately. So a lot of stuff seems to be going on that you have opinions about, and it's really cool to see that interaction. You can find me on Twitter at dbethel, tweeting pages of my comic. You can also find us on Instagram. You can find Andrew at Profound Brick and me and my work at dbethel Comics.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can go to by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. There you'll find this podcast, actually. And if you are listening to it there, feel free to like and subscribe. Or as the kids say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusi, the other is called District 4. Both written and performed by Kevin MacLeod, the Clan MacLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 attribution license.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out most would be to go to their storefront and leaving some sort of review. Whether a text review or using the proprietary metric helps spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithm. Algorithms. One thing, and then we'll go into the closer here. I totally forgot. And there's not really there's not much to say except it's awesome, but the recreation of the Incredible Hulk TV show opening.
Right, yes,
oh,
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
That's like the thing that just made me lose my mind was when she said, "You won't like me when I get angry," and they're just standing there like posing clearly on there's some weird compositing blue screen stuff going on, and Bruce Banner just saying, "Oh my god, they nailed it." It's like, and I love it. It's like that clearly came up in the writers' room. It's like, "Hey guys, you want to do this? Should we do this? Yeah, we should totally fucking do this, right? Why is it in there? Why?" They're like, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
She-Hulk. We can do whatever we want. It's so good. But what else is so good, at least I hope so, is that between now and next week, dear listeners, the final episode of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor in Doctor Who will be airing, her regeneration episode. And Andrew and I are excited, but probably for the wrong reasons. Or the right reasons. We've talked about this briefly before.
Reasons. Yeah.
The Seventh Doctor's the companion from the Seventh Doctor, Ace, Dorothy McShane, is returning for the first time since 1989, right?
Yep. In a BBC produced whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. She's made plenty of Big Finish audio drama appearances, but they keep releasing pictures, and then Andrew and I just share them, and we're like, "Holy shit! She's got the bat. She got the jacket. This is gonna be awesome." And I hope the regeneration goes well for the Doctor as well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering, because the 60th anniversary is weird. Because, like, it's David Tennant and Catherine Tate and RTD. And, like, I don't know what's going on there. But the next Doctor that's been announced, Ncuti Gatwa, and his first season doesn't appear for a while. So I'm guessing she's going to be regenerating into Ncuti, right? So I don't know. We'll see,
or
right?
She's going to regenerate into David, or she won't regenerate at all. Who knows?
And he's like, oh right? It's kind of like the inverse of Sylvester McCoy's first episode, right? Where they couldn't get Colin Baker back.
Oh, so they just put him in a wig.
So in this, they just she regenerates into a column of light, and then the episode ends or something like that. It'll be fascinating to watch. It's the end of a very strange era of Doctor Who that people have opinions about.
They do.
So you can probably expect we're going to talk about Doctor Who next week, dear listeners. So be prepared for that. That means we'll see you in 2 weeks. That's great. If not, who cares? We're going to be here either way. So until you show up again, dear listeners, I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast.
Oh, so you actually you got those things to own?
Yeah. Really weird.
It's not like you just checked out the A-Team movie from the library.
No.
Okay. Do you think Kevin Feige did the voice of Kevin?
I doubt it.
That's true. He's too busy to give a shit. Ring the bell.
Okay. Ding.
No, say it. You need to say it, Andrew. I was gonna say it has all the energy of fucking indigestion.